We turn our attention now to a powerful new report that goes to the heart of equity, justice, and opportunity for Black men in Chicago and across the country. Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, one of the city's leading advocates for strengthening Black families and transforming systems that too often fail them, has released an important new study titled Blueprint for Transformation: 8 Pathways to Equity and Justice for Black Men. It's both a diagnosis and a roadmap, a clear-eyed look at the structural barriers Black men face, from economic exclusion to criminalization to the lack of meaningful pathways to health, housing, and healing, and a bold vision for how our institutions can and must change. Guiding this work is Dr. Clinton Boyd, the Executive Director of FFHC, a nationally respected scholar practitioner and an advocate. Dr. Boyd has spent his career elevating the lived experiences of Black fathers and pushing for policies that create stability, dignity, and justice for Black families. Dr. Boyd, brother, welcome back to the Newsroom. It's always a pleasure sitting in conversation with you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you again, and I really look forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, you're doing important work that matters to me personally, but should matter to all of us in the sound of our voice today. So let's jump in. Let's start with the why of it all. What inspired you and your organization to create this blueprint, and why do you feel that this moment demanded a new framework for how we support Black men here in Chicago and beyond?
Yes, so it's important to note that the Blueprint for Transformation is really a continuation of work that we've engaged in over the past several years.
That you presented on our show some
Yes,
months back.
so back in April, Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, in partnership with Equity and Transformation, released our report called Breaking the Chains: Reclaiming Wealth, Power, and Dignity for Black Men. It was a comprehensive report that talked about the economic realities of Black men and fathers here within Chicago. And it was a comprehensive and dense report that also included a slew of policy recommendations. Sure. And so we felt that it was only right for us to make sure that those policy recommendations received their own level of treatment. And that's what resulted in us creating the Blueprint for Transformation, which really elevates many of the recommendations that we introduced in the Breaking the Chains report.
Oh, that's important to note. So this report, this expansion, it outlines 8 pathways from economic opportunity to justice reform. This is almost like asking you to choose your favorite child, but I'm going to do it anyway. Which pathway in your work has emerged as the most urgent or foundational in your research, and why?
Yeah, so as noted, we introduced these 8 pathways to equity and justice for Black men in the context of the Blueprint for Transformation policy report. But the one that I feel is the most foundational is the first recommendation, which is entitled Build Wealth, Not Just Wages. And it's important for us to have that conversation about wealth inequality, and what it looks like for us as a community to accumulate wealth, because wealth is really the material expression of security, dignity, and possibility. And for us as a community, we've historically been deprived of opportunities to accumulate wealth. And once we've gained access to it, we've lost it through both brutal and sophisticated means. And so it's important for us to really unpack the necessity of why it's important to do work around wealth accumulation, because even when you look at some of the statistics nationally, Black households have roughly $1 million less wealth than white households. When you look at it in Chicago, half of Black families in Chicago have zero wealth, whereas the typical white family has roughly $210,000 worth of wealth. If we're talking about Black men nationally, at the median, we have about $10,000 in wealth, which is 8 times less than what the average white male has. And this isn't the result of individual failure. It's the result of intentional policies that have stripped us of the opportunity to accumulate wealth.
One of the themes that you elevate, and we talk about a lot here as part of our case for existence, and that is the importance of narrative.
Oh, yeah.
How society perceives and portrays Black men. We see it every day. How does changing that narrative connect in your mind and your research to measurable changes for Black families and communities?
Yeah. Well, first, it's important to acknowledge that narrative is a form of power. Narrative is what alters public perceptions. Narratives influence public policy. Narratives influence the flow of resources that either go into a community or come out of a community. And therefore, we have to be incredibly mindful of who controls the narratives. And when we think about Black men in this country, historically, the dominant narrative attached to us has been one of distortion and also deficiency.
Yeah.
And for us, it's very important to correct the narrative because even when you look at the research again, Black fathers across the nation are actually more likely to be involved in the lives of their children compared to fathers of any other racial or ethnic group. That's an empirically proven fact based upon a CDC report. We read to our children more often than our counterparts from other racial and ethnic groups. We're more likely to support the emotional development of our children in comparison to fathers from any other racial or ethnic group. And we are just more likely to support the unique developmental needs of our children who are growing up in a society that devalues Blackness. And so it's important for us to recognize that we have a very special role to play, and that's what the research brings to bear. And therefore, we need to take control of our narrative and put forth a new one that is centered on the foundation of truth.
Yeah. Some of the recommendations in your report are policy-driven, others are community-driven. Where do you see the greatest opportunity for partnership, especially with city agencies, employers, philanthropy, and organizations like ours?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's important to note that FFHC as an organization, we believe in self-help and self-determination. And so when I think about the greatest opportunity first starts within our community.
Come on.
And that means that we have to find ways to unite the community around what our enlightened and intelligent self-interest is. And so we have to have more intentional conversations about what it is we want for our community that is actually going to be beneficial for the community as a whole. And once we have those conversations, then we're in a position to negotiate with external stakeholders, if it's government, if it's employers, if it's the philanthropic community, from a place of power opposed to a place of dependency. And so that's something that I feel is most important as we think about how to take many of the recommendations that we introduce in the Blueprint for Transformation policy agenda and think about how do we get it enacted. Okay. We have to start with self, and then once we know what we're collectively advocating for, we put pressure on those power brokers to give us what we rightfully deserve, because what we're asking for is steeped in justice.
And not unreasonable. If there is one action, one first step that you would urge viewers watching our program tonight, that you would urge leaders watching our programs, one step to take after reading the report, what would that one first step look like? What would it be?
I mean, fund prevention and not punishment. That's also one of the recommendations that we discuss in the report, because there's a tendency to invest public dollars and resources after the harm has been conducted, whereas there's an opportunity to shift those resources further upstream to prevent families from being in positions of hardship to begin with. And one of the ways in which we can fund prevention and not punishment is to also invest in fathers.
How about that?
Yeah.
On that very profound simple truth. I'm going to thank you once again. Dr. Boyd, it is always a pleasure. You know this. You and I have had conversations offline. Such a supporter of your work, such an advocate of the continued truth-telling that is research-based work that you and fathers, families, and healthy communities are doing. Every opportunity we have to bring you here to share this, we are at an important time in our shared history, and we've got to start having these conversations directly and more often. So thank you very much. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Our pleasure. On the other side of the break, I'll be joined by a phenomenal group of notable Black leaders to discuss the good, the bad, and the sublime moments that made 2025 a year we're not soon to forget, even if you try. Stay with us.